I didn't set out to connect Tartaria and pyramids. I wasn't hunting for lost civilizations or secret histories. I wasn't trying to dismantle archaeology or challenge the foundations of what we're taught about human progress. I accepted the standard model without resistance. Ancient people were clever, but limited. Technology advanced slowly and unevenly, and similarities across cultures were either coincidence or symbolic imitation. I believe pyramids were tombs or temples. I believe Tartaria was a historical footnote, a vague term Europeans used when they didn't understand the vastness of Asia. I believed that until the patterns stopped staying in their assigned boxes. It didn't begin with texts, it never does. Texts lie, disappear, get rewritten. Stone doesn't. Geometry doesn't. Proportion doesn't forget what it was designed to do. I began noticing that certain architectural principles kept repeating across time and geography in ways that felt uncomfortably precise. Not similar. Identical in function, identical in constraint. Egyptian pyramids, Mesoamerican pyramids, step pyramids in China, subterranean pyramid-like mounds across Central Asia, regions later labelled as Tartarian, different cultures, different languages, different mythologies, and yet the same rules governed their construction. Orientation to cardinal directions, accurate to fractions of a degree, placement near fault lines, aquifers, and geomagnetic anomalies, ratios embedded in their dimensions that modern engineers recognize instantly, harmonic proportions, resonant geometries, mathematically efficient shapes that appear not when people are decorating, but when they are solving a problem. The official explanation is independent invention, humanity discovering similar ideas because the human mind works the same everywhere. But independent invention doesn't explain why the solutions are not just similar, but constrained in exactly the same ways. You don't accidentally converge on identical engineering tolerances unless you're building for the same purpose. That's when Tartaria stopped being a word and started becoming a question. Not the romantic Tartaria of internet lore, but the Tartaria implied by infrastructure, by cities that appear fully formed in historical records, by fortifications whose geometry prioritizes energy flow over defense, by civic layouts that mirror older sacred sites with unsettling accuracy. Tartaria wasn't showing up as a culture, it was showing up as a system. And suddenly the pyramids didn't look like isolated ancient marvels anymore. They looked like anchors. We're taught that pyramids represent the beginning of monumental architecture, humanity's first great achievement, a symbolic mountain connecting earth and sky. But symbolism alone doesn't require internal chambers tuned to specific frequencies. Belief doesn't require foundations that reach bedrock and intersect underground water systems with precision that modern surveying struggles to replicate. Ritual doesn't demand that the same angles, slopes, and ratios appear on different continents thousands of years apart. Function does. The more I compared pyramids to later monumental structures attributed to Tartarian-era civilizations, the harder it became to separate them. Central elevated forms, radial layouts, processional avenues aligned with solstices and equinoxes, extensive underground networks whose construction predates official timelines, integration of water everywhere, channeled, stored, redirected. Always water, always grounding. The materials tell the same story. Granite rich in quartz, limestone heavy with calcite, basalt dense and durable. These aren't aesthetic choices. Quartz exhibits piezoelectric properties. Calcite responds to pressure and vibration. These stones interact with energy in measurable ways. Modern science knows this. Ancient builders used it systematically. Then come the metals, introduced more prominently in later structures. Copper, bronze, gold, iron, conductive pathways embedded into stone. Elements that connect elevated points to the ground. Sky to earth, earth to water. The same logic applied again and again, refined but never fundamentally changed. The pyramids appear to be the earliest iteration of this logic. Tartarian-era structures look like maintenance nodes. Upgrades, adaptations built atop an existing planetary framework. We're told there is a clean break between ancient and modern civilizations. That knowledge was lost, then rediscovered slowly. But the engineering principles don't show loss, they show continuity, as if the knowledge was preserved not in books, but in structures themselves. And then there's the silence. No accepted narrative explains how pyramid-level engineering vanished. No serious discussion of why humanity achieved extraordinary precision early, then regressed. We're asked to believe that societies capable of aligning megastructures to planetary forces forgot how to build straight walls without assistance. But civilizations don't forget functional systems overnight. They abandon them. And abandonment always has a reason. When Tartaria disappears from maps, when pyramids are reclassified as tombs, when star forts are demolished and domes stripped of metal, this isn't just cultural evolution, it's infrastructural transition. Old systems becoming incompatible with new ones. Energy systems change. Consider what these structures appear designed to do. Elevated conductive surfaces, deep grounding, resonant geometry, strategic placement. These are the components of an energy system that does not rely on fuel combustion or centralized generation. A system that interacts with atmospheric electricity, telluric currents, geomagnetic fields. A system that is distributed by nature. Distributed systems are resilient. They're difficult to monopolize, hard to meter, harder to control. Now consider what replaces them. Wired electrical grids, central power plants, transmission lines, metered consumption, corporate ownership. Energy becomes a commodity instead of a background condition. Something you buy, not something you access. The transition happens quickly, too quickly to be organic. By the early 20th century, monumental construction following these old principles stops almost entirely. Existing structures are modified. Metal elements removed, foundations filled, domes replaced, spires labelled dangerous or obsolete. The pyramids are spared demolition, but redefined. They become graves, symbols, tourist attractions. Their functional interpretation disappears from academic discussion. Tartaria becomes a cartographic curiosity, a misunderstanding, a word without substance. And the gap is sealed. Ask yourself why there is no serious debate about this transition. No textbooks discussing the replacement of one global infrastructure system with another. No engineering journals questioning why thousands of massively overbuilt structures suddenly became unnecessary. The silence isn't neutral. It's curated. Look at construction photographs from the 19th century. Massive buildings rising with minimal visible machinery. Small crews, simple scaffolding. No evidence of the industrial effort such precision should require. It's as if the structures were assembled from prefabricated components, as if the designs pre-existed the builders, which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if Tartaria wasn't inventing, but inheriting? What if the pyramids represent the original planetary grid, established by a civilization far older than we're willing to acknowledge? A civilization that understood Earth as an energetic system, not just a surface to inhabit. Tartaria may have been the last global culture to operate within that system, maintaining it, adapting it, extending it into civic and administrative forms. And when that system stopped functioning, or became inconvenient, it wasn't forgotten. It was dismantled. Quietly. Systematically. The buildings weren't destroyed outright. That would raise questions. Instead, they were repurposed, redefined, their purpose buried beneath new stories. A courthouse, a museum, a capital. Labels that explain presence, not design. Stand inside a pyramid chamber and feel pressure. The way sound behaves differently, the way silence feels heavy. Stand beneath a grand dome attributed to Tartarian-era architecture and feel the same sensation. Different time periods, same effect. That's not coincidence. That's resonance. Once you start seeing architecture as infrastructure rather than expression, the world changes. Cities stop looking accidental. Old maps stop looking naive. The obsession with alignment, proportion, and material selection stops being mysterious and starts being necessary. The question shifts from, why did they build this? To, what system did this serve? And that's the question official history never answers. Because answering it would require admitting that our story of progress is incomplete. That civilization doesn't move in a straight line. That advanced systems can exist, collapse, and be replaced. That what we call modernity may not be invention, but substitution. We didn't invent global energy infrastructure. We replaced it. We replaced something distributed, integrated with the planet, and largely invisible with something centralized, extractive, and profitable. And in doing so, we redefine the past to make the transition seem inevitable. The pyramids remain, stripped of their function, and wrapped in mythology. Tartaria vanishes into ambiguity. Architecture becomes art. Geometry becomes decoration. Precision becomes coincidence. But the stone remembers. The metal remembers. The proportions remember. These structures were not built randomly. They were not built independently. And they were not built without purpose. They are the visible remains of a system we no longer operate and no longer officially acknowledge. Once you accept that possibility, history stops feeling ancient. It starts feeling interrupted. And the pyramids and Tartarian ruins stop being curiosities. They become evidence of a world that understood something fundamental about energy, earth, and architecture that we have chosen, deliberately or not, to forget. The question isn't whether Tartaria and global pyramid cultures were connected. The question is how much of that connection is still standing around us, silently waiting for someone to remember how to see it.